Hi everyone, today I wanted to talk about Sun in the 8th house. So, what happens when someone's zodiac sign is in the 8th house of the zodiac? So, this doesn't it doesn't matter what actual zodiac sign your sun is in. So, you could be an Aries sun, you could be a Gemini sun, a Sagittarius sign, whichever zodiac sign. But this is basically talking about which house the sun is in your birth chart. Today I'm going to be talking about the sun in the 8th house. It's a very interesting placement, so just keep watching. Before I get started with the rest of the video, I wanted to let you guys know that I'm doing natal chart readings. I do synastry chart readings also, which are called relationship compatibility readings. So, if you are in a relationship, if you want to get into a relationship and you want to know what it's going to be like, you can contact me for a reading. And I also do tarot card readings. So you can ask me a question related to any aspect of your life, and I'll do a tarot card reading for you as well. So, if you want to contact me for a reading, just drop me a message on my Facebook or my email. The links are in the description box, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So, yeah, let's talk about the sun in the 8th house today. So, the sun represents our identity, our ego, um, our core self, basically how we identify with ourselves. What are our core values? Who are we as a person inside? That's all the sun. Um, the 8th house is traditionally ruled by Scorpio. It represents deep transformation, it represents hidden knowledge, it represents other people's money. So the traditional ruler of the 8th house is Scorpio, and this is one of the houses which represents a lot of intense subjects, a lot of taboo subjects, a lot of upheaval and transformation. So when somebody's sun, which is so closely connected to their ego and their identity, when a planet like that is in the 8th house, and we should remember the fact that the sun always illuminates whichever house it's in. So, irrespective of what zodiac sign you are, like you could be a light-hearted Gemini sun or a Sagittarius sun or some other zodiac sign, which is not so heavy, not so intense, but because you've got your sun in the 8th house, it just lends you a certain depth of character. It lends you this quality of being quite an intense person. Like you could actually relate to a lot of descriptions of a Scorpio sun, for example, because of the fact that your sun is in this house. Now, I'm not saying that just because your sun is in the 8th house, you are like a Scorpio sun. No, but those themes are going to play out in your life because the house in the zodiac represents the area of life that it governs. So, in this case, the area of life it governs is transformation, death, reinvention, that sort of thing, transformation. So, in your life, you may go through a lot of changes, a lot of transformations, which can feel very painful at times because that's what the 8th house represents. But after every time you have these kind of crisis situations, you just grow up, grow into a stronger version of yourself. It's almost like a phoenix rising from the ashes. That's why one of the one of the symbols of Scorpio is the phoenix because Scorpio has this regenerative quality to it where it kind of thrives on chaos and crisis in life. So every time you face a crisis in your life, any kind of deep transformation, it's going to be deeply cathartic. It's going to be in a way that changes you from the inside, right? Like, so this is like an emotional transformation, spiritual transformation, psychological transformation that happens every time you go through these crisis situations in your life. It's very plutonic in nature. So when these changes happen, you can almost feel like your whole world is falling apart because the nature of these changes are such that they pretty much uproot your entire existence, or at least that's what it feels like. But just like any change in life, the outcome is always positive. Like we may not see it that way in that moment. We may feel like it's the worst thing that's happened to us, but eventually when we look back on that incident in hindsight, we feel that whatever happened was possibly the best thing that could happen to you. And so sun in the 8th house is this kind of a placement where change is a constant. That's a very common saying, but in your case, in your life, you may feel like this is like the mantra or the motto of your life, that change is the only constant, because you typically go through so much transformation and so many changes in your life that when it doesn't happen, that feels like an oddity to you. Like that feels like something strange. Why isn't it happening? Um, Now, of course, it's going to depend on which aspects are being made to your sun. For example, if you have sun aspecting Uranus in the 8th house, then this is going to make the nature of these transformations more abrupt, more sudden, out of the blue, unexpected. So it's going to feel more like a shock, because that's what Uranus does. Like the energy of Uranus is like that of electricity. So think of it like an electric bolt hitting a tree and it just burns the entire thing to the ground. That's the energy of Uranus. So if Uranus is aspecting your sun sign in the 8th house, then the transformations are going to feel even more like they're going to deliver even more of a punch, even more of a shock value. And it may not always be very pleasant. Especially 8th house transformations are typically not pleasant. It's going to be pretty, like I said, cathartic. It's going to be very intense in nature. Now, the sun in the 8th house, because sun is so connected with the ego and the identity, and the 8th house has to do with the occult, you may have this natural inclination to explore occult subjects or hidden subjects or taboo subjects, or just something that is not mainstream. People don't talk about it that much. Those kind of subjects may interest you much more than a lot of other subjects. And you may not know the reason why, but you would generally have this natural tendency to explore these subjects from a very young age, typically. And you may be very fascinated by astrology, occult subjects, metaphysical subjects, things of that sort, even though you may not understand why. Even if you don't believe in astrology or if you don't believe in the occult, you're just going to be naturally drawn to it. Or even if you're not drawn to the subject per se, you're going to be drawn to people who delve in these kind of subjects, right? So either way, just this area of life fascinates you a lot. And you may do a lot of research also just to satisfy your curiosity and get to know more about these things. You may just delve more into the subject. You may also feel like you are very psychically attuned, especially to other entities. So, for example, you may have a very strong sixth sense. You may be able to detect negative energies around you very easily. Paranormal activity, supernatural activities, you may be able to detect these things much easier than people with the sun in some other house. Why? Because the 8th house has to do with these subjects, and the 8th house is a water house. It's the ruler of Scorpio, and Scorpio rules the underworld. So that's why I said, like, you may be very good at detecting negative vibes, not just from people but even from places, and different locations. Like, you may go to a place like somebody's house or anybody's house, and you may find that a certain corner in the house, you just get this negative vibe about it. So that's what I'm talking about. You may be able to detect auras and negative vibes, especially negative energies. You may be able to detect it uh, quite easily from a young age, and you may not be able to know why. And like, for example, in childhood, if you experience this, you may be able to see spirits sometimes. So if these things have happened to you, or if, for example, if you suffer from sleep paralysis, that's something else that a lot of sun in 8th house people have told me, like they've gone through, where you are in another dimension in your dream state, and you basically don't have control over your body, and some other entity is sort of taken control. So those things can happen till you learn to master this power that you have, because 8th house is very powerful. So those are some things you may experience from childhood. And if your family has not been very open to these topics, then you may feel a bit misunderstood, because you feel like you're the only one going through these things. Um, so that can be a bit of a challenge for this placement, where a lot of people don't understand them because their thinking is very deep. It's at a level where, like I said, it's at an energetic level where a lot of people are not there yet, or they're more stuck in the superficial 3D realm, so they can't understand some of the experiences that an eighth house sun can sometimes go through. So that's a little bit about Sun in eighth house. Also, the Sun in eighth house makes you a very intense person. Intense in the sense that you feel things very deeply. For example, you can detect somebody's tone of voice or somebody's mood and somebody's energetic levels even through email and different forms of communication. And other people may be surprised, or they may ask you, why do you feel that way? There's nothing in it. But then you may be able to pick up on these energies from other people. um, so that's another element, another layer that makes you feel things very deeply, and you may find it difficult to move on and get on with things as easily as you should. So for example, you could be a Gemini sun sign, or let's say a Sagittarius sun sign, or any other sign which is not known to be very intense, right? Like which is known to be more light-hearted and playful. But because you've got the sun in the eighth house, you may not resonate so much with your zodiac sign descriptions, because you may be a very intense person. Like, you may feel things very deeply. If somebody says something to you in a negative way, it may take you a long time to get over it. Like, you're not going to be the kind of person who's just going to dust it off and say, okay, let's move on. So that's another thing that sun in eighth house can sometimes deal with. So that's a little bit about Sun in the 8th house. If you like this video, if you have this placement, if it resonated with you, do give this video a thumbs up, and do like, share and subscribe to my channel. If it resonated with you, drop in a comment in the comment box. I love to read your comments and respond to them. And also, if you'd like to get a personal reading done, drop me a message on my Facebook page or my email. Both the links are in the description box, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, guys.